being here this evening. We're going to have our invocation and pledge. I wonder if I could impose upon you, Reverend Scurry, to do double duty because I know Mr. Reader is not going to be with us tonight. So would you have our invocation and our pledge, sir?
Here we go, bow our heads, please. Everlasting God, we come this hour thanking thee for life, health, and strength. We thank you, God, for keeping us safe in our Savior's care.
Yes.
And God, we ask you now to take our families, protect us as we travel the dangerous highway, and as we come to a joint plan and commission to join our minds together. In the sweet name of Jesus Christ, may we all say together, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I know some people had some conflicts. I know Mr. Reader's not going to be with us, and Mr. Hiff at least is not going to be with us for the first session. I'm not sure about the second session. I wasn't clear about that. Are there, item number one on our agenda, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda for the 5 o'clock meeting?
None.
Hearing none, is there a motion that we approve the agenda as published? Motion by Mr. Shealy, second by Ms. Airwood. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor by showing of a hand, opposed likewise. It carries unanimously. Item number 2 on our agenda, Mr. Brent Richardson with Newberry County Water and Sewer Authority. Come on down.
I appreciate y'all letting
this,
me
Brent?
involved in this process. So I actually let my coworker Daniel Potterbaum start us off, and then I'm gonna pick up a little bit later in the presentation. But this is Daniel Potterbaum, our assistant manager, and he's put together a nice PowerPoint presentation for us tonight. So.
Sounds great.
Sure to be thrilling.
I'm excited.
Water and sewer. Okay. Yes, thank y'all for having us. And I want to go just give you an overview of the water and sewer system in the county, so you have an idea as you go about your task and what you got out there in terms of water and sewer service. I'll talk to you about the water system, then I'll hand it back to Brent, and he'll go through the sewer system. Water system usage, just to give you an idea, we have 4,100 residential taps, 290 commercial taps, 12 industrial taps, town of Little Mountain, the town of Prosperity, Pomeri, Silver Street. Peak demand, about 1.6 million gallons a day, and our average demand is 1.2 million gallons a day. Just to give you an idea on the industrial side, these are the industrial customers we serve right now. These are primarily focused in the Mid-Carolina Commerce Park, 773, and US 76 corridor. Water system supply. We have 2 sources of drinking water for the system. One is the Lake Murray Water Treatment Plant, which is down on Hams Landing Road. It has 2 million gallons of constructed treatment capacity. However, only 1.2 million gallons of capacity is deliverable to the distribution system. I will talk to you about that a little bit in just a minute. The plant is designed and has a master plan to go to 6 million gallons a day at full build-out. We also have a purchase contract with the city of Newberry that allows us 1 million gallons a day of purchase from them through 3 master meter connections, and we'll see where those are in just a minute. The distribution system, we have approximately 350 miles of distribution piping, 5 water storage tanks, that's 3.6 million gallons of storage, above ground storage, a little over 2 days worth of water in storage, 4 pump stations in the system. Wanted to talk to you about this. This is our highest priority water project job. As I mentioned, we have 2 million gallons of treatment capacity at the plant, but we can only deliver 1.2 million gallons a day. That's because we have a need for an upgraded water transmission main and pumping capacities at the plant. This job is estimated at $11.9 million. And the project was just submitted to the Rural Infrastructure Authority for ARPA grant funding. That's the American Rescue Plan Act, and we hope in March of 2023 we'll have a funding decision on that. Please keep your fingers crossed for us, because that would be a huge shot in the arm for the Water and Sewer Authority. I want to go to a map and walk you through the county water system. Give you a little bit of an idea of what it looks like. The colored lines represent the water lines, different colors, different sizes. You'll notice that as the further you get toward Lake Greenwood and the Chapels area, we don't have very much service out that way. We don't have really much service in the Stony Hill community or north of 26 up toward Whitmire in the National Forest. You'll notice there we don't have any service in that area. But we'll focus in on a couple different little areas, give you an idea of what's there. Area number one we'll look at is down around the lake between Blacks Bridge and Dreher Island. You can see we have considerable service in that area on the lake shore. This infrastructure is suitable for residential and light commercial development. We don't have anything going down 391 from Ira County Road down to Blacks Bridge at this time. You see the treatment plant there and then the Macedonia flag station, just as points of reference in that area.
What's a flag station?
Oh, that's just the one that's got the flag painted on it. Most people know that. They're like, oh yeah, the flag tank. Yeah, it's not a technical term. Good question. The next area around the town of Prosperity, we have a master meter connection up near the graveyard on US 76. Lines coming down C.R. Coon to the Pioneer area. The town of Prosperity has its own distribution system, and you can see the Gen Tank, Georgia Pacific, and the Commerce part. This area has some of our strongest infrastructure suitable for residential, commercial, and industrial development. You will note, and I'll speak to you about these red flags you're going to see. These are capital improvement projects which we think in the next 10 years will be completed. An elevated storage tank near the Mid-Carolina Commerce Park. The Water and Sewer Authority has a capital improvement plan that documents a laundry list of projects that need to be done around the county. Funding is the big piece of that, as I'm sure with you guys, about getting things done. So we get them done as we can get them done. Okay, the next area 3, is out toward Pomeria. You can see the Commerce Park there at the bottom of the slide, Cannons Creek Treatment Plant, Pomeria Garmany School noted as references. We have strong infrastructure around the interstate, but the further you get from the interstate, the less the capacity of the water lines gets. We do have a capital improvement plan for improvements along 202, Coons Russell, 176 Bourne S Road, and 219 to beef up the water infrastructure in this area. Let's see, the fourth area is Little Mountain. As you can see, we do have water lines that extend down 76 to the county line out to 202. This infrastructure is sufficient to support residential and commercial development in that area. The fifth area is the I-26 corridor from 121 down to 219. We do have substantial infrastructure in the water system around 34 and down to 219, suitable for residential, commercial, and industrial development. However, we do not have service to all four quadrants of the 121 interchange, but we do have a capital improvement plan for water service to that interchange. And Brent's going to talk to you about the sewer service for that also in a little bit. You see a master meter connection to the city there at the old Hales restaurant as a landmark. Sixth area out in the Bush River up toward the rest area. You're getting on the edge of the National Forest. A master meter connection to the city. Again, that's the Hales connection. This infrastructure is suitable for residential and light commercial at this time. It's not really heavy infrastructure going out that direction. And the final area I'll talk to you about is the Silver Street area. We do have a master meter connection for supply from the city at Silver Street. However, these lines in this area are smaller lines suitable for residential and light commercial development. And like I said, that's the end of our line there at Green Acres on Highway 34 going toward Chapels. But with that, I'll hand off to Brent with the sewer system, and then when we wrap up, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to. Oh. Yes, and we have some copies we can.
Thanks, sir. Daniel left me the good smelling side of the presentation, so I'll talk to you a little bit about the sewer system. Sewer system is much smaller. We've got approximately 650 residential connections, 60 commercial, and 10 industrial customers. We also provide the sewer service to the town of Prosperity and the town of Little Mountain. We've got approximately 65 miles of collection mains, 40 duplex pump stations. This photo is showing you an example of a duplex station, a newer duplex station on Macedonia Church Road. So since Newberry County has a lot of topography changes across every half a mile, then we've got a lot of pump stations in our sewer system. All right, sewer treatment. We've actually got two means of treating the wastewater that we collect. One being the Cannons Creek Regional Plant, which is on Boy Nest Road. That's a 950,000 gallon per day capacity plant. There's 550,000 of that is allocated capacity, which leaves us an available capacity of 450,000 gallons per day. Rick, you'll hear him mention there's a 400,000 gallon a day threshold that they like to maintain for available Commerce Park, capacity to meet certain requirements. So we've got an active project to increase that capacity in the near future. We also have two connections with the city of Newberry. One of those connections is on US 76 and one behind the Samsung plant at 219. A combination of those two connections are 150,000 gallons per day capacity. I was mentioning the Cannons Creek wastewater treatment plant expansion and upgrade. We have a project this is our highest priority sewer project. It is on the CPST ballot, and this would increase our waste treatment capacity from 950,000 gallons a day to 1.5. So a much needed project estimated at 5.2 million. And you'll see this map is much leaner than Daniel's map. So as you said, the sewer collection system is much smaller. You can see the areas where we've got sewer service. There's a lot of sewer service around the Lake Murray area, around Prosperity, 773, even out to Pomeroy Garmany School, some in Little Mountain, a good bit on 34 and 219 interchanges, and then a line that goes up to the rest area. But you can see there's no sewer service out in the Silver Street community, Stony Hill community, or really up, toward the Sumter National Forest, north of 26. So I'll just focus in real quick on this area. You can see this is some of our largest sewer infrastructure. We serve GP, the Commerce Park. We got several, commercial businesses there at I-26 and 773. And then the top left part of that screen, you'll see the Cannons Creek plant. So all this wastewater is pumping to the Cannons Creek Regional Wastewater Treatment Facility. All right, next area we're going to zoom into is down at Lake Murray. So you'll see we serve Drew Island State Park. We'll be on the lower right-hand side of the screen. See our Lake Murray Water Treatment Plant listed there. And then this is, Highlands Landing area. If you go over to Bethel Church Road, we've also got lines going down Bethel Church Road, Lake Road, and Holly Point. So this infrastructure is primarily designed to accommodate residential growth and light commercial. All right, Prosperity area, again, a beefed up side of the sewer system. We serve the town of Prosperity. We collect all the wastewater coming from their system. And you've got a nice size infrastructure on C.R. Coon Highway that's serving the industries like Kisswire, Pioneer Foods, that sort of thing. Next area, 34 and I-26, 219 and I-26 got sewer there serving the Love's Travel Plaza. We connect to the city just behind the Samsung facility. We've got sewer that runs up to SC 34 interchange of I-26. So we're kind of, the right-hand portion of that was run to the old Pro boats facility. And so we're surrounding that, county home property too. The county's got a pretty nice sized piece of property kind of in the middle of that Y there. But we do have a capital improvement project for extending sewer service to 121. All right, the last area I'll talk about is the I-26 rest area line. This is smaller infrastructure, really conducive for residential and light commercial development. And it runs from our connection with the city of Newberry, which is there not too far from the airport road area, and runs up to the backside of the I-26 rest area facility. That line was installed by the DOT years ago to eliminate a waste treatment plant that was at the I-26 rest area. But I think that is my last slide. So at this time, we'll be glad to answer any questions anybody might have, or anything else that we might could share to maybe help in this process. So,
Would there be any questions from anybody? Floor is open. Okay?
Just because we're looking at growth and expansion, what are the limitations other than funding? I know that's your big one, obviously, but are there any other limitations to expanding water and sewer in terms of topography or available wastewater and water treatment plants and that kind of thing?
right. What we are trying to do, we try to put our focus, we'd like to start at the plants. So having plant capacity is always our number one priority, because the line work is kind of secondary. It's easy to plan, easy to lay out, but the plant work takes a lot of planning, a lot of permitting, a lot of public meetings, and so we try to start at the treatment plants. But as far as funding is probably the biggest hindrance with regards to any infrastructure expansion. So we've got a 1-cent sales tax project in the pipeline, and the ARPA project is right at a little over 11 million. So we're gonna in November and next March, those two decisions that come back with regards to funding is gonna move the needle a lot of different ways for the Water and Sewer Authority. So.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other questions from either side? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Those areas that you showed us where there was not sewer service.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, for the residential portion of that, that's all septic, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is there a substantial amount of commercial or industrial that winds up having any septic, or is that all in the sewer line?
Most all of the industrial and commercial is on public sewer, I would say.
It would almost have to be, I guess.
That's right.
I just wondered about that.
You're exactly right, Dave. What you said is exactly right. The one industry I can think of that's not on public sewer is there's a pleasure craft marine business going out of Little Mountain, going toward Chapin on the left. And they don't have access to any public sewer, but it's been there for many, many years. And probably back in those times, maybe the permitting was different. But I would say 99% of industries or commercial businesses these days are going to be looking for both water and sewer.
Yeah, so in order for them to move in, we've got to have those lines.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions?
Where's the intake for your water that you filter to put out? Where is it coming from? Is it coming from the Lake Murray or some of the rivers, or where are your intake water?
Yes, ma'am. Our intake for the Lake Murray Water Treatment Plant comes out of Lake Murray at the end of Hams Landing Road.
That's what I thought.
So we have an intake, and it's permitted for full build-out, and is sized at 6 MGD. So it's the intake pipeline and the intake structure itself will be good. What's in the ground now will be good for full build-out of the plant. So we're coming straight out of Lake Murray, and then the water we purchase from the city is coming out of the Saluda River, and we purchased through 3 connection points with the city. So, but yes, the water in Lake Murray is very stable. It doesn't change rapidly with rainfall, and so it changes some, but we're very fortunate to have Lake Murray as a big body of water to pull our raw water for the treatment plant.
Others? Yes, sir.
Are there any planned line extensions on the sewer?
Yes. I think we sent over a copy of our CIP.
You have that? Okay, Cheryl.
Yeah, and it does have those listed, but yes, sir, yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you both very much. We appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir, thank y'all.
All right.
Thank you.
Next, we have a review, discuss, and develop the future land map for land use element of the comprehensive plan with Ms. Katie Works +1.
I'm gonna turn it over to Miss Cheryl.
Okay, Ms. Cheryl.
I'm not gonna use the podium because it's almost as tall as I am. So,
Just stay near the microphone so they can hear you.
yeah,
I will say, get your blue packets out.
Okay.
okay. Yeah, you see what I mean? I look like a Wendy's lady. We are in the middle, really towards the end, of a comprehensive planning process, and I know several of y'all were involved last time. I know Mr. Livingston was. I don't know if you remember the process. It went very well and very easily. I think it was a good process. So at this point, we have a number of elements already done. Katie's already reviewed them. 3 of them went to the Stakeholder Committee yesterday, and 4 of our planning commissioners that are here today were at that meeting. So that is a great start to the review process. The next step on that is we'll make some changes based on some input from the members, and then that will go to Planning Commission for their review, full review, and then that'll come to you. So. But for today, we're going to talk a little bit about land use, and we're going to try to set the stage. We're not quite at the point where we want to put pen to paper yet, because you haven't seen these elements, and all the elements build to the land use element. This is the whole point of the comprehensive plan, is that you're trying to get as much information as you can, and water and sewer is key. I mean, that is one of the most important. But the second one, well, there's several that are very important, housing being another one, but I think a really important key point is economic development, and we will not have that one for a little while because we're waiting on the strategic plan that y'all are already involved in. So that will impact our land use just a little bit. But we're going to talk about where we are and what land use is going to be doing. So just a quick rehash. I apologize to the planning commissioners. Y'all heard some of this. I'm not going to go through all of it. I'm just going to go through a couple of things. But what is a comprehensive plan? The thing you need to know right off the bat is it's required by state law. So this is a compliance document, but you don't want to make it just a compliance document. You want to use it to the benefit of the community. It defines community goals, objectives, and policies to guide public and private development. In other words, what do we want to become? How do we get there? It examines community strengths and weaknesses. What do we need to improve? What can we build on? And it assesses conditions and analyzes trends, like where are we headed in the future. As I said, it's required by the Comprehensive Planning Act of 1994. Per that act, the Planning Commission must establish and maintain a planning process for the preparation and update of the comprehensive plan. So in other words, it's their plan. They hired us, and Katie's the staff member that's been shepherding the process. The plan has to be reviewed every 5 years and updated every 10 years. Your last plan was adopted in 2012, so we're at adoption in hopefully in 2020. We'll probably be a little bit late in 2023 because of the economic development. And that's just the way your plan looks now. It'll be a little bit spiffier this time around. So how does it fit in? Well, it's long range and it's comprehensive in scope, and it's a general guide for future social, economic, and physical development. It's area-wide, it's not site-specific. It is, and this is, if you come out of this meeting with no other information, this is what you need to know. It is not regulatory. This is not land use regulation. It is not zoning. It is not subdivision regulation. It is a blueprint. for how the community would like to grow and develop. And when we do the comprehensive plan as a blueprint, then it's implemented by these other things. So zoning and land development regulations and so forth. And we don't want to get those mixed up, because you cannot talk about both of them at the same time, because most people get confused and think you're talking about zoning, and you're not. You're not talking about zoning. It impacts zoning, but it is not zoning. So you have your 10 plan elements as required by state law. We have a new one this time, resiliency, that was added a couple years ago, and you do not have that currently, so that'll be a new element. The planning process generally is an inventory of data and the current condition, needs and goals, setting of needs and goals, and then implementation of the plan. And how you implement it is through your zoning ordinance, your land development ordinance, which is subdivision, capital improvements, your zoning map, and then the policies and procedures. So what are we requiring? We have 10 elements, as I said: population, housing, economic, cultural, natural resources, community facilities, resiliency. We have community facilities twice, sorry about that. Transportation, priority investment, and land use. And you can add other ones, and the one we've added for this particular process is implementation, so that Katie will have a roadmap. She'll know what needs to be done at what time based on the plan. And she can have an annual checkup and bring it to you guys and say, we've done these things this year. So each element has to have 3 things per state law. It has to have an inventory of existing conditions, a statement of needs and goals, and implementation strategies with timeframes. So this is what your land use, part of your land use implementation is for your current plan. And you see, you set a goal. In this case, it was enable and promote land use development that meets current and future needs of Newberry County residents. Then you have 2 objectives that are more specific, and then you have strategies, which are the actual action items for the plan. So staff goals for the plan were set early on. They want it to be simple and easy to understand for everyone, including the public. They want to have goals, objectives, and strategies that are specific and achievable with built-in progress monitoring and evaluation. They want to incorporate visual aids to enhance reader understanding and force key points, and to be straightforward and clear. We feel like our plans generally are these things, but certainly there are always ways to improve. So we have element stakeholder committees. We have 5. We will have 5. We just held the first one. Each one includes people that have interest in the subject matter, and it also includes planning commissioners and council if you have the time to participate. Yesterday we went over the population, housing, and cultural element drafts. We had a lot of good input, a lot of good discussion, I think, and those drafts, like I say, are going to be going to Planning Commission soon. They'll be going back to the stakeholder group for final approval, and then going to the Planning Commission. The next up, we think will, yes, sir.
How many people were present at the population, housing, and culture?
We had a good crowd.
25?
Yeah, that was good.
25.
Very good. Unusually good. And we had a good selection of people. It was from a lot of different areas. We had somebody from the Opera House. We had United Way. We had school districts. What else? A real estate agent. We just had a really good mix, I think. Yes, we did. We had a representative of the Hispanic community. She was very helpful, I thought. So next up, we think, will be natural resources and resiliency. Natural resources is done. Resiliency is underway because it's a new element. It's taking just a little bit longer, and there's not too many models, so we're kind of making our own model. The next one, or it could be the second one, depending on how fast we get it done, is community facilities, transportation, and priority investment. Those are very closely related. And transportation and community, well, I'm getting ready to send community facilities to Katie tomorrow for her review, and then transportation probably will follow very quickly after that. So priority investment is almost completed as well, so we're well on the way on that one. Economic, that has been started, but we halted to wait and let strategic plan catch up with us so we could use that data in the economic development element. We plan to use the steering committee for the strategic plan as the review for that. And then land use, which we're going to talk about a little bit more in just a second, that will be more of planning commission and council's baby. So, and that was the case last time, and I thought it worked really well. Stakeholder, as I said, stakeholder committees have related public and private organizations and interested citizens. We don't stop anybody from coming to any of the meetings. It can be just an interested citizen can come if they have an interest in the subject matter. So, planning commissioners and council are encouraged to participate in one or more of the element committees. Each committee will meet to receive an element overview, and they'll offer input on the background data. They've been provided drafts, and then they'll discuss issues, and then they'll help us finalize goals and objectives and implementation strategies. So then they will follow up and add additional review on background data, and they'll give us edits by mail. We try to keep it low. We've been in situations where we've had multiple meetings with the stakeholders, and it wears them out. And you don't want to do that because you end up with 2 or 3 people at the last meeting. So we try to be as cognizant of as few meetings as possible, and we try to do it as much as we can by email. Once the committees have completed review, the element drafts will go to the Planning Commission review and revision. Planning Commission will review and recommend the completed drafts, but then they'll submit the consolidated draft to the council for adoption. And this is one thing we wanted to bring up and ask because we're not sure. Some jurisdictions want every element as they're completed and gone through the Planning Commission. Planning Commission sees them as they're completed. Some councils want the whole thing at one time. I believe in 2012 you got the whole thing at one time, and I will tell you it is not small. So it is a lot to do. You may want to review and then discuss, but then hold for any adoption till the end. Or you may just want to get the whole thing out at one time. That is totally up to council. So you may want to discuss that among yourselves. You don't have to decide today, obviously, but.
Well, speaking from the past, it's overwhelming to get it all at once. I think it
I
would
thought
be
so.
to get it in sections.
We can. As soon as that goes to Planning Commission, we can get that to you. So timetable, it's a 12-month process. It'll be a little bit more now because of economic development. But stakeholder review, we had that yesterday. The natural resources is complete. Community facilities is complete as of today. Resiliency, transportation, and priority investments nearing completion. That's not quite true. Transportation is actually it's going through editing right now, so it'll be through very shortly. Economic development, you heard that already. And then land use is going to build on all these elements, but it's already somewhat in development, and that's why we have a couple of these maps already, well, one map in particular already completed. It's the existing land use, what's on the ground right now. We did that using the GIS data primarily, and Bob Beard's actually his knowledge of the area, which is extensive. Y'all are going to miss Bob, I'll just say that. He's been great to work with. So, land use element. How do we do this? Again, we inventoried existing land uses based on the GIS. That was our basis. Mapping of existing land uses, integrated land use category definitions, which you have in your packet right now. A couple of them are a little complicated, and I'll explain why in a second. And then staff knowledge has been really helpful. And if for some reason somebody sees something that they know for a fact is not correct, you need to let us know because it is not foolproof. Using the assessor data is not foolproof. I'll say that right now. And then just a side note, railroads and roadway right-of-way are not assigned classifications. So what are the existing land use categories? These are the ones we used in 2012, and we almost always use them in almost every comprehensive plan. You have agriculture and forestry, commercial, industrial, single-family residential, which would include manufactured homes. So it would be a single house on a single piece of property. Multifamily residential, apartments and mobile homes, manufactured homes. Parks and recreation, public and institutional. And we have Sumter National Forest, which is an entirely different category. And then vacant land, which you do not have that much of, as you will see when you get it. So this is the existing land use map for right now. This is going to be in the plan. As you see, the light colored green is Sumter National Forest. That's a big chunk of the property. But an even bigger chunk of the land is the agriculture and forestry. You have a substantial amount of that. When we did this in 2012, and then we brought this forward to now, we had to figure out a way to count farms that have houses on them, which are a lot. You have a lot of smaller farms that are centered around a house. So we did that, and you can read it in more detail, but we did that by setting an acreage, and properties that are classified as agricultural in the assessor's office. I guess you know more about that than I do. Those that have houses on them under, I believe it's 10 acres, are actually reclassified as residential. And it makes no difference other than we just wanted to make sure the map didn't look like you had no residential, because it would have if we had not done that. So, and then that is our map. And you can see public and institutional is a fairly big chunk. And then a lot of the other uses, like industrial, are generally centered around some of the more populated areas, commercial as well. And we have one printed out over here if you want to look at it a little more closely. So the existing land use is a little bit more centered towards individual properties. But future land use, we recommend highly that you be very general with, because you do not want to hamstring the future. You don't want to set land uses and then have things change, which they do constantly, and need to go back and change the comp plan. You don't want to be voting on that every 5 minutes. It's just not good practice. In 2012, the categories we used were, and that's 10 years ago, we used economic development, which we had actually recommended that we call it transitional, but council felt like they wanted a little more clear guidance with the name, so we want economic development. Lake development, that's the areas around Lake Murray and I believe Greenwood as well, Lake Greenwood. Parks and recreation, public and institutional, residential, and we lumped all residential together into that because you just don't have that many residences that aren't single family. Rural development, which is a substantial portion of your county, and then Sumter National Forest. And the way that looked in 2012, and I'll put it up, but it's also on this map, is this. And you can see rural is huge. I mean, it is most of the county. Your comprehensive plan also applies to a few towns, well, all the towns except for the city of Newberry and Silver Street. Everybody else it applies to because your staff actually administers their land use regulations. So we have to make sure that we accommodate them in the comprehensive plan as well. Theoretically, we probably should have grayed out Silver Street as well, but because they have no planning and no land use regulation, we felt like we needed to address them as well. So you'll see that it is a very simplistic map, but in a lot of ways it makes a lot of sense. And you can read the more extensive definition of each of these in your packet. So we have a few questions just to get you guys thinking a little bit about land use. The first one is, since we heard about the water and sewer, how is that going to impact future land use? My thought is a lot, but the limitations impact it even more to me. It's not going to be easy to expand the water and sewer in the county. It's going to take a lot of money, and it will expand. I mean, there's going to assume when a subdivision comes in and they want to pay for the expansion, you guys will expand, right? So that's going to happen, and in industry as well, I'm sure. But in terms of it being just out there and ready for development, that is a limitation. So Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Well, the other thing that came up in our meeting yesterday, which we knew about, but not to the extent that they were talking about, was the substantial uptick in new subdivisions in the last few years. When we did the plan in 2012, the city of Newberry and Newberry County had only had a few subdivisions in their entire history. Probably you can count them on one hand. Now, they have several in the works. They had a couple of them that have already been built, and they have several in planning stage. So, and this would probably equal 300 or more, I think. Victor probably knows a little bit better than I do.
Yeah, I think in the one module, it mentioned about 400.
Yeah, exactly.
Two different developments in the city of Newberry, and about another 430 or something that were.
Exactly.
put on the county.
Right, a lot of them are at the lake. Some of them are at the lake.
But again, you know.
Right.
It's 10 years, so most of that should come to fruition, but
Right.
we don't know.
We hope so. What we talked about yesterday was the fact that in 2008, we had the housing bubble, or whatever you want to call it. And then we had the pandemic, which totally messed up the market. So we don't know exactly how those are going to pan out. And some of them probably sat on Katie's desk for a while and didn't move for 3 or 4 years, whereas they're jumping now. But we don't know what's going to happen in 3 or 4 years. So we can't say for sure this is all going to happen. Well, what we can say is it might, or it probably will. So we have to accommodate that.
And Brent, you might answer this question. How does the city and Newberry County Water and Sewer, particularly on the sewer part, interface? Does the city have any plans to extend theirs out, or they have to stop at the city limits, or how does that work? Really, the sewer helps with density, which puts less pressure on farmland or agricultural land and things like that, so the sewer is kind of the connection to help that. Do you have any plans to extend out, or how do y'all hook up? I know.
Well, we've got an agreement, a wholesale agreement with the city where we're able to discharge at certain connection points right now, and we have the ability to expand those connection points in the future. But you want to speak a little bit to that?
Yes, sir. Right now, we don't have any real, we have some upgrades planned, but no expansion plans.
Good question. Another thing that came up, actually in 2012, but also during the major zoning update we did right around that time or a little bit before, was mixture of uses. A lot of jurisdictions are allowing mixture of uses. Your R2 district actually was changed to be a little more compatible with what normally goes on in a rural district, which would be sometimes a mixture of uses. In other words, a person would want to have a beauty parlor right beside her house. That can now be allowed within certain parameters. Those kind of things. There's also developments that could have total mixture of uses. You could have office, and that would be more probably compatible with the I-26 area. But you could have a district that would allow housing and commercial. That's something to think about. Is that something that you guys are ready to move towards or not? A lot of places are, and they're getting some interesting developments because of it. Right now, we don't have a mixed-use district in your zoning ordinance. This would not create one, but one of the things we could recommend is that we study that and see if that's something that would be appropriate. So just keep that in mind. The other question, and probably the biggest one, is does the future land use map, does it really meet the needs of the community? Is it doing what it was intended to do? Does it still reflect the vision of where you expect and want to go? Where you think these land use types are going to be in future years? There may be areas that have actually, and we can look at I have not looked at that yet, but the existing land use, it may show that some areas have been more commercial outside of that economic development. the area, and it may need to expand. Or you may decide that it needs to contract a little bit. And that is your call, and we will help you make it at a future meeting. But we wanted you to think about that kind of thing. You have the maps in your packet. You might want to just take a good look at them. Look at what's on that existing land use here, and just kind of compare it to there, and think about, is this the way to go the next time? The future land use can be anything you want it to be. I will tell you that right now. You guys are going to draw it. We will assist you, we will recommend, but we will not draw it. We will help y'all recommend it. We will help y'all draw it. So that one worked for the time that it was done. The question is, does it still work? And do we need to change it? And how would you like to change it? You don't have to tell me specifically how, but if you give me some ideas, we can figure that out. That is mostly what we wanted to talk about today. We wanted to get these things out in front of you. We wanted to get you thinking about these issues. At the next time we meet, which I assume will be later in the year, we will actually, and I'm sure Mr. Livingston remembers, we will actually get up and we will draw on that map. We will say, this needs to come off, this needs to stay. If you have major changes, then we'll have to redo the map, and that'll be fine. I'll be happy to do that. So we want you to be prepared for that meeting. We want you to come to sessions if you can with stakeholders. Use your plan commissioners. They're coming to the meetings. They know what's going on. I feel like they have a good feel for what's coming through, probably more than anybody other than Katie or Christopher. So I think their advice would be really helpful. Any questions?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Just looking at the current map and the future one, when I look at the economic development area, for one, there's a tremendous amount of single-family residences in there. I'm just wondering how, if we're putting a lot of commercial structures in there,
Well,
is there going to be kind of a denser mix of these things?
well, if you read the actual definition of economic development, let me see if I can read it. I need glasses. Yeah, exactly. Land areas that are either are or have the potential to be economic development centers and include uses such as commercial, industrial, higher density residential, public, institutional, and related infrastructure. Commercial uses, you all know what the commercial uses include, and also include public uses such as hospitals and churches and congregate care centers, nursing homes, that kind of thing. So what we were saying when we said transitional is these areas might not necessarily ever be that way, but they have the potential to because I believe council felt at the time they were close to major transportation areas. They have the potential to be connected to water and sewer at some point. I believe that was I can't tell you the exact reasoning behind all that, but I believe that was it mostly, that they have the potential. They may never be, but they have the potential. And that doesn't say that you can't be residential there forever. That doesn't say that at all. And we can even make it a lot more clear. It can be residential forever. But there's a chance that these areas might change. And they had already started changing in 2012. This is why I believe they do it that way.
If I'm not bad wrong, 2012, we also had a lot of commentation regarding keeping green space.
We did, and that was very rural.
Yes.
Came from.
And again, there's got to be a balance, I think. But at the same thing, we don't want to get to where we are imbalanced by outside influences. And again, I'm speaking for myself, but I'm also speaking from things that I hear from people as I am talking with people. Good many of y'all have been here your lifetime. Mike's family has been here, and his daddy was very instrumental in my life and some of the things that I've done or decided to do or wanted to do. And this is going to go against some of the people that are sitting on the outside looking in right now. But I was in Lexington 4:45 Monday afternoon, leaving, and the traffic was horrendous. Chapin, where I work, trying to pull out onto Columbia Avenue at 4 to 6 o'clock, you basically have to pull out right, go to the bank, turn right at the light to come back out. A lot of people, and again, I'm in real estate now, so I hear a lot of people, they say, we'd love to have 1 to 5 acres of land in your area up there in Newberry. They're wanting to flee these large subdivisions.
We talked about that.
Ma'am?
We talked about that last night, yesterday.
And developers are sitting on the county line just lurking at the opportunity for us to put water and sewer in places. And we're going to be, if we allow that to happen, we're going to be poised to have the same situation that Lexington County has got right now. And I know when you go on Facebook and you see all these people who want Publix, who want all the fine dining, et cetera, there's going to be a balance. What do you want? Do you want a population of 50 or 60,000 explosion? Or do you want what I think a lot of us have come to appreciate and be proud of is our rural Newberry County? And I get pretty, I voted for one recently and some people gave me a lot of grief for it. But I'm also a person in government who does not believe that if a landowner should be able to be told exactly what he can and can't do. It was not that I was exactly in favor of what we allowed to happen. I can still take my yearbook, and Mike and I think we were about 2 years apart and graduated from high school. We can take our yearbooks from Mid Carolina High School and we can overlay it currently with the new ones, well, I say the new ones, the ones that my last son, which is 24, and all the last names pretty much overlay each other.
I went to the grandparents' day in Normandy, and I was there with 3 generations.
Correct. You get my wife's yearbook, on the other hand, from Chapin, and overlay it with what they got, and it's not even recognizable names. Not even, I mean, I actually have a degree, but sometimes I can't even pronounce some of the names, the pronunciation of all the syllables across there. Is that where we want our county to go? And I think based on what I'm hearing is, of course, I'm actually up for re-election, and some of the people that I'm talking to, that's not the direction they want our county to go in. So we need to make sure we get the balance that we want to protect our county and keep it as recognizable as it can, because there is a lot to be said. And I don't know that anybody in here in law enforcement right now, but we have one of the safest counties in the state still, regardless of where we may be having some crime here and there. We're still one of the safest. We got one of the highest per state solving cases that exist. And we've got a lot to be proud of. So growth is not always in your best interest. So I just want people, when we go to thinking about this, drive 20 miles outside of this building right here, and you can see what is lurking on our sidelines wanting to come into this county and take advantage of it and make money off of that, more so than they are to enhance the citizens of Newberry County.
Right, and that is why we need to review everything to decide, how do we want to go? What is the next phase going to be? We heard from a real estate agent yesterday that there are a lot of people moving into Newberry County. Average age is not young, it's older. These are not young folks, but I think Mr. Williamson's right. We kind of predicted this in 2012. We had some glitches in between with the pandemic, but there are a lot of people in Richardson and Lexington counties that are moving this way because they're tired of the congestion, and there are probably some developers that are standing there waiting, for big properties to slap little houses on. The way you deal with that here is we deal with it in land use plans, but we also, in the strategies, if we know, because we know how bad it is, that the land development ordinance is horrible. It's just not well written, and it's very old. It needs to be updated, but that's one way you can work on that kind of issue. And one of the things we can say is, update the land development regulations and look at these issues, try to deal with
Anybody else? I would just say, I would echo what the buddy has said, is that traveling around this state, I was at Clemson the other day, and they're out of land. They're now building shopping centers on the first level and apartment complexes at above because there's nothing left. There's nowhere else to live there. And one of the ladies that I was calling on there as a customer said that she moved out because she was tired of it. And so controlled, measured, healthy growth is a good thing. Uncontrolled, losing the identity of Newberry County and what it stood for my entire life is a bad thing. And so there's got to be the balance of that. So I agree.
Well, and just to tag one more thing, I was sitting in the office right across from the Opera House, was where one of our offices was, and this lady, well, 3 people came up the street, and they looked at our window with some of the houses, and when they came back down, they looked at it again. And anyway, at that point, I was intrigued enough to get up and just go out and say, "Where are y'all from?" And they said Chicago. They were here visiting for some purpose. She says, "Y'all have the most wonderful little town and community."
That's right. Absolutely. Mr. Inglesa, did you have something?
Well, the comments are really helpful for staff and for Cheryl. The red area that's currently defined as economic development, some of the comments are kind of leading us to maybe refining that area. There are low and medium density properties within that red area that probably should and will always remain low and medium density, large lot neighborhoods. And it sounds like in comments here and elsewhere that our future land use map should hold those as low, medium density areas, even within the currently called economic development area. And we could refine this and start to look at those areas and have a new designation and designate them for the future to stay that way, and then identify other areas for more medium it's really zeroed in on where that may be appropriate based on some of the infrastructure things that we know, the capacities that are available. And we could also refine the economic development definition, because maybe within this area, there are areas for manufacturing and industrial economic development, but other areas that might be more suitable for a mixed use, like Cheryl was alluding to, or a retail or office. And so we could really define and get some more refined vision within this area. It sounds like there's a lot of agreement on the R2 and keeping that rural and the forest and looking at some economic development up in the Whitmire area. But refining and getting, sort of rolling our sleeves up and getting into this red area and creating some more definition on what appropriate future changes, with a little more definition, because when I read this economic development, it's a big pot, and when we go through the rezoning process and do our analysis, we can fit a lot of things in there, and that puts staff in a difficult place sometimes. So if we can refine that, we can meet a lot of the comments that are coming from council and commission. But one other question is, up here in the green is the Parks and Recreation area, and there's no other, I don't see any other park. Okay.
But we are not in, they have their own comprehensive plan, their own land use regulations.
I don't know what's out there, or how that ended up as a.
That's the conservation area, which was pretty far.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah, it is,
It's
it's very nice.
hundreds of
I wanna
acres.
say it's,
Which is it, the Belfast house?
yes, no, it's not, yeah, Belfast is one of them, I think.
That spills over into that borders between, that goes over into Lawrence County also.
Yeah.
Huge.
Cuts back in there, it's
So
nice.
we grouped some conservation areas, with recreation, that is why it's, sorry.
One of those up on 121 here in Whitmire, that's where it's about when he bought that land and made that stream mitigation. That's that funny one there, 121. I don't know what those other two are.
One of them might be the rifle range. Is those considered part of that?
No, that wouldn't be there.
I'm not looking at it on the map.
Or General Henderson Island, Henderson Island, what that.
There's a boat ramp on
This
General
map
Henderson
does not
Island.
distinguish colors very well, so you can't see it. Yeah, you can see a little bit better on this map.
I don't see that one you're talking about on here,
One on one.
121.
Existing land use.
Oh, I was looking on future.
Yeah, like, below you. Here, that's that area that DOT, Colorado, back in the, that was DOT bought that. And they went in there, that's where all that reconstruction of that creek channel was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going on there.
Oh, yeah. I wondered what that was,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what the DOT bought that thing, there's a stream, and after, if they affect the stream, that's where if it hit wetlands, it hit the stream anymore, and they had to reconstruct that all those streams in there, as one of their mitigation projects.
That's probably what
Stream
the,
mitigation bank, if you got a wetland mitigation bank, that would be
Right.
a stream, mitigation bank.
there's a couple of other ones that are probably similar too.
Yeah.
How they go along a creek, so.
Yeah. All right, are there any more questions? Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. See you
Next,
soon.
the next item on our agenda is discussion of a text amendment for solar farms to be special exemption in the R2 rural zoning district.
Okay, so right now, solar farms are only allowed in the industrial zoning district. Staff has been discussing a text amendment that would change where a solar farm would be allowed. Staff has come up with putting it as a special exception, which means it would not come before council, but it would go before the planning commission for approval in the R2 zoning district. One of our major reasons behind that is the big controversy that we had several months ago out in this area was this rezoning. As you can see now, there's this circle of purple and everything else around it is still R2. Our thoughts is a solar farm comes to us and says, we've done our homework, it's gonna work here, we need rezoning, comes before planning commission, they send it to you all rezone it to industrial. 2 years later, for whatever reason, they back out. Now we have an industrial classification that can allow any industrial facility to come into our county without anybody's approval. So our thoughts are, if we keep it in the R2 zoning district as a special exception, it passes, for whatever reason, they back out, we still have protected that land to still be able to be farmed, it can still be residential. We haven't now created a possible industrial site where any industrial use can be in the middle of our rural areas. We have added some extra regulations that will have to be met through and approved through the planning, the BZA. One of those is our buffers and setbacks. Currently, they only have to meet a 100-foot setback in the industrial classification. Now we have added, it has to be set back 125 feet from all road right-of-ways and adjacent properties. And they also have to have a buffer of 100 foot, where in industrial it was only 50 foot. And that's again from all right-of-ways and adjoining property lines. And that thought is, a lot of our people, when we bring a solar farm to planning commission or you all, is people don't want to see it from the road. This will keep that buffer and keep it kind of backed out, hidden from the side of view. So tonight we just wanted to discuss with planning commission and you all, because planning commission will have to make a recommendation on the text amendment, and then it will come to you all. So if there's any questions, comments, concerns on this, we're here tonight to try to answer those before we get a vote from Planning Commission and then you all.
All right, we'll open the floor for questions.
I like the protection it would give us, and that would be the main focus for doing this.
It is to protect our areas, like I said, you know, if this was to fall through, anything that's in that permitted use table for industrial does not have to come before Planning Commission, BZA, or you all. If it's in that permitted use table, I can't stop it. I have to issue the zoning permits and, you know, as long as they meet our current zoning criteria. But we have no protection. If we keep it as a special exception, we do have a little protection in, if they back out, it's still now R2 and we're back to where we were. No change in the zoning.
If I'm gonna speak for the planning commission, don't give me a hooch up or whatever, we have wrestled, this is one, we wrestled with and actually turned it down. There was a lot of opposition from the Bremmers in the area, the adjacent landowners about the whole concept of solar farms, the building, the taking care of, and really the disposal and deactivation, or whatever you wanna call about it, and we denied it. And I understand the concept of what we're doing here, to be honest with you, I think that's a good approach, but some of us, not that we oppose green energy, but there's some issues with solar farms that are, you know, maybe not conducive to.
And the other part of that, speaking, is if you have any other criteria that you would like these solar farms to have to meet, this is the time that we put them in here before we pass this text amendment. So again, what we're suggesting is in that blue packet. If you have any additions or changes, if you feel like the buffer needs to be bigger, or if you want to say it's got to be a certain acreage size property, I mean, that's things that we can add in under your advice.
I'm not sure who to direct this question to, but like, we've required decommissioning bonds and those kind of things on all these farms.
That's still in here.
And that's already included in that
Yes, that's
language,
still-
right? So
yes.
if they just were to leave tomorrow, we do have a bond to clean that up.
Yes, we do have a bond.
Gotcha.
And
That was my question.
yes,
Yes.
the bond is still in there, yes, sir.
We approved one previously, Bill Park's property, next to Southern Railroad, and I talked with him, and, you know, big deal, they came in, everybody wanted it, and I asked him, oh, they just disappeared. So,
I think that started back up again.
It's
hasn't
coming
it?
back.
Yeah, I think it's coming back now.
We had it, that was an example, we had an industrial setting over there, and he had a tree farm on it, but, I hadn't heard it come back up, but I hadn't seen it.
I think the logic is sound, from my opinion. I think it protects us from, you zone it for that to give them a solar farm, and the next thing you know, there's a junkyard there, you know, and now you talk about everybody mad, so I think.
Control of the situation.
Yeah.
But when that,
Those are the
This as an special exception, the
That's the part that it changes the rules on changing zoning, gets into much more legal.
and what BZA's task will be is to go through every one of these requirements and make sure that they have and can meet every one of these. If not, will not be approved.
so we have that one out there that if it does come back, we don't have a decommissioning plan for it.
If it was done within our current zoning, we will have a decommissioning.
But it's already been zoned.
But it just changed the zoning.
It just-
But you still have to do all the.
Yeah, they still had to do decommissioning plan setbacks.
Okay.
But if and when they ever decommission that site, it will still be industrial. It won't
That's-
go
yeah,
back
so
to what it
that's-
was.
That's what I meant.
That's
yeah.
the issue, yeah.
So we got one or two that's gonna still stay that way.
It would
This
stay
would-
industrial,
right.
Yeah,
Whether it moves forward or not.
Yeah, it's not retroactive.
no.
No. All right, is that enough guidance for you? It sounds like you
So,
got a bunch of head nods.
All right, so what'll happen is Planning Commission will meet, next Tuesday, get a recommendation to you all, and it'll be on your agenda in the next couple weeks to get it moving for a vote.
Okay. Next on our agenda is discussion of impact fees for dilapidated mobile homes in overgrown areas.
We added this from, a comment from last council meeting. We're here just to kind of get some more information of what y'all would like staff to do as in research to get you some information. I will kind of give you an update on the, 34 mobile home park. Shortly after I started here, the gentleman who owned it reached out, and we had some extensive conversations about him getting it cleaned up and trying to get it in much better situation. So about 4 or 5 months ago, we pulled plats and looked at it, and the problem we ran into is no one realized, if you've been out to the property, you know when you come in there, it makes a circle, half circle driveway. He didn't own that back driveway. Miss White still did. So his first step was for him to get full ownership of that entire piece of property. So he and Miss White did, the last I talked to him, Miss White had made an agreement that she was gonna deed it over to him. That way he was in control, he had that entire piece of property and could move forward with getting these houses updated, because that was part of the problem was our zoning, he could demo them, but he couldn't put them back because a lot of these houses didn't have power for more than 6 months, but he didn't meet his land requirements, which he thought he did, but because she owned that strip in the middle, he had 2 parcels and he didn't realize that. So the last we have spoken, and I tried to reach out for this meeting, but I could not, of course, reach him, was him and Miss White were gonna make that road his so he can survey it into 1 parcel and he could get those old ones out and move forward with getting, at that time, his plan was to get new ones in, get better tenants and clean it up. But again, that was about 3 or 4 months ago when the last time we spoke. So we just kind of wanted to know what your thoughts were. Impact fees versus bonds. Honestly, if we talk about bonds, I'll have to get Miss Joni's assistance, legally what we can and can't do with that going forward.
I'd say there's one that butts up to our districts, on 121 right before the interstate, that's in worse shape than that.
And the 34.
Yes. It's on, if you're coming from Highway 121 at 76 there at Hale's Old Restaurant,
Yep.
It's on the left going out down there.
Okay.
It's mostly, almost completely covered in kudzu.
It's a snake pit
You
and,
can't see it because of kudzu. At least
yeah,
it's covered up.
yeah.
Do we know if owner is local?
I have
Nobody
no,
knows?
I don't know
Okay.
who owns it
I don't know
anymore.
who we went to after his death.
If you contact me tomorrow, we have contact with them.
Great.
Also, it's not just mobile home parks. We have them out in the community that, I get a new mobile home, they pull one in, they leave the old one, sits there, and it's covered up in kudzu.
So that's where we run into folks not abiding by our zoning ordinance and doing what we call a quick disconnect. If they do it the proper way, they come in and they shall be getting demo or moving permits instead of quick disconnecting them, having the house brought in, putting it back. So we have no way to enforce it unless we're called out there and says, hey, my neighbor just put a new house in and their old one's still back there. And then we go out, make them, if they have enough property for a second dwelling, get a new address. Do you have septic for it? But a lot's being done that we don't have staff to go out and patrol it and look for it.
Or they live in them until they're no longer livable and just leave.
Yes.
They just leave or pull another one out.
No, there's several of those.
Yeah.
I know what's.
But not only do we have that situation with mobile homes, we do have some stick-built homes that were,
There ain't no question.
Our inspector needs to have the authority to condemn.
And that's something we do not currently have in our zoning ordinance, and we get calls all the time, you know, can you help us? And unfortunately, without that ordinance to help back us, we really cannot have any assistance. So that's kind of where we're at. What do y'all want us to start looking into? You know, what are your wants and thoughts?
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm looking around. I thought I saw Joni. Is Joni here as well? Okay. Anyway, if we did impact fees, those can be attached to the taxes as part of the tax notice, correct? No?
I don't.
So impact fees are to help offset the cost of new infrastructure as a result of new growth. So impact fees would not be available to deal with old trailers or old mobile homes that are a nuisance.
Is there a process where we could attach it to the taxes?
For municipalities, there is, the Association of Counties is working on an amendment in the state code that would allow counties to do something similar. We can go in and do it, but we would not be able to attach it to the tax bill right now. At our cost, so if it costs us $1,500 to go in and clean up a lot, we don't have a tool to get that in the tax bill right now.
Because I'm not a code guy per se, but I know enough to be dangerous, and otherwise it's a civil judgment, and they could just do a confession of judgment, and you have nothing to show for it if they started with nothing to begin with.
In my experience, we'd be chasing a ghost.
Yes.
And I don't know what year it was, but several of y'all have been to the South Carolina Association of Counties and the J. Mitchell Graham Award and some of those things that go out because of accomplishments that a community has made. A couple years back, and I can't remember exactly when, but there was a community improvement grant that somebody got, and they actually use that to clean up a lot of their communities.
So when I was at the city, we were involved in that, and it's through the CBGD, and they provide you the funds, and you go out, you identify the homes. It's a lengthy process. You do title searches, you notify all involved interest. I mean, there could be one house that has 20 folks that have some kind of interest in it, and you reach out to all those. They have opportunity to come in, fix it up, or they can demolish it, and it's certain amount. It depends on how much it's going to cost, whether you lean it or that project fully funds it. But there is a program out there for that.
And there's 2 or 3 areas that I've seen recently, just riding around. One's over toward St. Luke's Church Road. One's over here on Highway 34. Y'all, if somebody told people that the landfill was on Highway 34, they might get confused. I mean, it's just that deplorable.
I would agree.
I've gotten calls from friends of mine who live over in the St. Luke's Church community who's got some, and it's, I don't know that we have anything in place to take care of it.
That's the problem. We don't.
We've got to have something, because when you get to the point where something could be that rodent infested and that much of an eyesore to our community, and again, I think most of y'all know I'm not one that believes in too much government, but dadgum, it's an embarrassment to the community. It's an embarrassment to the people that are joined. I mean, I'd almost rather have a hog farm next to me than I would.
There's one on 121, close to the old antique barn, Fowler's old skate
Yep, I know what you're
rink.
talking about.
Mm-hmm.
They pull tarps. They got like a clothesline. They pull tarps.
It's awful.
I think
It's awful.
because they sell this stuff. I don't know what they do. It's awful.
It honestly looks as if it's a third world country or something in that yard. It's
Looked
that
like
sad.
the bomb blew up. But
I guess the biggest
I
thing
don't
is
know
if it's
what-
out of sight, it might be one thing, but gosh almighty, when it's where everybody's got to ride by and be
I
just.
don't know why they put up the tarps unless maybe
My thoughts are, like the junkyard fences where you can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
unless they have been addressed and
Yeah,
they
that's an
keep
idea.
it open more than they do shut.
Yeah.
It's like they were trying to do a business there, I think. I don't know, but it looks like a war zone.
And they don't have power to it either, so that complicates it that much more.
So
Well,
we-
It's hard to believe.
Power cut on every 6 months, so that you can't do anything.
All right?
I guess just do some additional exploring would be my
Do we,
suggestion, if you could
do,
just.
kind of get with Johnny versus bonds versus impact fees? Is that kind of what we're looking for right now for just manufactured home parks? Is that?
I think just from,
say
in
all.
general,
In
yeah.
general,
Well,
we have-
there's two, I think there's two different
I
levels
think
of
we have
this.
two, yeah, I think we
We
have
have two
an
issues.
ordinance for abandoned junk
Yes.
properties, and then we have the manufactured home
Yes.
park situation.
The manufactured part to me is almost like having a decommissioning process for the solar panels.
Right.
Solar farms.
Okay.
Right.
There, if somebody's gonna go in there and put mobile home park, they need to be responsible for so-called decommissioning or cleanup. Needs to be some kind of funding set aside that they can't just leave us with the garbage that we've had. Am I wrong, y'all? I guess.
I agree.
I think I got a reputation of people know where I stand when I don't sit back here and just bite my tongue. So, I mean, if I'm on the wrong track here, just please let me know, but.
All right,
I would ask that there be an exception made for someone who has an old mobile home and moves it so they can use it as a storage structure, but not to let it fall in and be dilapidated. As long as it's kept.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We can, yes. So both, I'd like to see us look at both of those, because that's one of the main complaints I get is, how do people live like that? Can't y'all do something?
I get
So-
that too.
And if it's somebody who can't do any better, as my grandmother used to always say, except by the grace of God, you could be there, you could be also. So I don't want to just kick people out of the best they have, but at the same time, if it's just not being used at all.
One of my old teachers, Miss Maffitt, called me the other day about a house next to her, across the street from her, that is awful.
we get
And
it
so-
all the time, but
yeah.
unfortunately, we just don't have the authority to do that right now.
I would like to explore what we could do.
Okay,
Okay. That answer that question.
yes.
Okay. All right. Having said that, we get to the last item on the agenda, which is adjournment from the first meeting.
One question, one thing I
Okay.
want to say before, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
We don't have comments on there. Since we very seldom get to see y'all face to face, thank y'all for all y'all do, because y'all generally catch the brutal attacks first.
They do.
And thank y'all for what y'all do, and we promise not to cut your pay.
It checks in, man.
But thank y'all seriously for what you do.
I too.
All you do.
Yes. Mary,
Yes, I want to thank y'all for all y'all's hard work.
Reverend Scurry.
Thank y'all so much. Continue, please.
We do. I don't know. We do. And when they come to y'all, they're mad. By the time we get to us, y'all kind of wore the good out of them. There's not a whole lot of vinegar left. So we're thankful for that. In all seriousness, thank you for what you do. And I know the pay's not good and the back pay check's in the mail, so just hold on for that. But it makes this county work, and it's a blessing that people are still willing to give their time and energy to make the county better. So we do all thank you very much. Okay. Having said that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Livingston, second by Ms. Airwood. Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands, opposed likewise. I would like for us to take like a 5-minute break between these meetings, please, and then we'll get right back. You get old enough, you know why we need it.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a one anyway. I know, Brent.